It is not our job to turn people away.
Mm-hmm.
It's not our job to condemn people. It's not our job to hate people. And I think everyone deserves to be cared about. Everyone.
Now, I am going to touch on something a little bit controversial that you mentioned at the start. So you're from Utah.
Not from there, but...
Oh, sorry, moved there.
Yes.
Also, I'm not sure if you can hear the ambulance. Hopefully not. I swear I thought I left New York, but apparently the ambulances are still
and
following
the traffic
me.
here, unreal. If you've never been to Boston, it's like, how did they get through the traffic?
I don't know.
If it were me, I'd be so concerned.
New York is
like,
20 times worse.
My person's going to pass away before I can get there because of the traffic.
New York is 20 times worse. And that's the thing, when the sirens go off, I'm like, God damn it, shut up. But then I'm like, oh my God, that's somebody probably dying. Oh God, Jen.
Like, let's take it on foot. Just throw the backpack on and just like make it on foot.
I mean, I have literally gotten out of cabs because I'm like, I could walk faster.
Right.
Like, that's it. So I probably, if I was in the back of the office, I'd be like, right, Mom, let's go. We're going. I'm hiking you to the hospital. But yeah, I do want to touch on, and this is, I'm mortified that I'm saying this, but there's obviously a big show happening on Hulu at the moment.
Yes.
What is it called? The
Mormon women
or I don't know. I know it's Mom Talk. Mom Talk. You're Mormon.
I am, yes.
Tell me. I've only watched 2 episodes. Honestly, couldn't stand it, and I'm not a reality TV person anyway.
That you said that. I'm like, oh, Jen, thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm not into reality TV at all anyway. There is 2 shows I watch, honestly. I will... Selling Sunset, and I know it's ridiculous, but I just love seeing the big houses.
Well, wouldn't that be so great if you had that kind of money?
That's the thing. I'm just like, let me just live my life through this for a minute. And then I also watch Made in Chelsea, which is a UK, the wealthy people in the UK.
Okay.
So whatever, it's a little bit of, clearly it's money. But I did watch this Mormon show, and this, what is her name? Taylor Paul, something like that. Anyway, is any of it real?
So I haven't watched it.
Okay.
I haven't watched it. I've seen some people post about it. Right off the bat, I can tell you. So, you've got these pictures of these women.
Yeah.
That,
gorgeous women.
Right. I mean, they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Women. Yeah, they're beautiful. And, I've seen an ad where they're all holding hands and they're all wearing the same outfit and they're walking in front of one of the temples.
Yeah.
And which would give the appearance that we're a cult.
It does a bit.
And then I've seen another one where they're all wearing these beautiful white dresses, not super modest, as far as what we would call modesty in the church. And just so you know, because I just have to point this out, we don't call ourselves LDS or Mormon. We were we did use the shorter version LDS, but the church has kind of asked us to move to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, just so you know.
Which is a
mouthful. You could say LDS and Mormon. I mean, I totally get it. Whatever. I can always tell if someone says Mormon. I'm like,
yeah.
Let me take this opportunity.
Yeah,
totally
to educate.
Fine.
No,
yes, totally
listen. I'm always like, you need to come to things with curiosity and an open mind. I don't know everything about everything. So,
like, we were just chatting. My husband and I were just chatting as we walked around Boston about all of the different churches that are here, and we were kind of talking. And I said, oh my gosh. Like one of the churches that we saw here in Boston, it's their 100 years since that church has been there. It's a beautiful church.
Wow.
And I said, they're having Mass. I was like, wouldn't that be neat to just come to the Mass to just see?
Yeah.
It's a big celebration. And I said, have you ever been to a Mass? And because I've not been to one, and he has. And so we were just kind of talking about it.
But it should be like that. Like, that's the thing.
Right.
Religion
and
shouldn't be like,
yeah, like you don't have to be a certain religion to attend.
There should be some gray areas. You need to be able to, I feel like you need to be able to be curious about other things in order to choose something.
Right.
Like I might, this is going to sound really basic, but like, there's dark chocolate, white chocolate, and milk chocolate. I've tasted all 3. My preference is dark chocolate because I know I'll eat 1,000,000 tons of milk chocolate. White chocolate I just don't like. But I'm curious about all 3.
I'm not a fan. And the same thing when my mom and I went to Mackinac Island, which if you've never been there, totally go. It's amazing. Up in northern Michigan. It's beautiful.
Another bucket list.
We went to the Rock Church, which I think is one of the older churches on the island. Not our regular, not what we would normally attend. but there was no LDS church on the island, and we just thought, well, let's just go. Let's just, as soon as it had beautiful windows, and the service was beautiful. I mean, I loved what he was talking about.
Yeah.
I think it was on Paul, but it was just it's just neat to go. And then a woman sang, and it was just a really nice service. And then of course they had refreshments after, and they were like,
always both
refreshments. And I was like, actually, we're getting lunch at the Grand, but thank you so much.
I always stay for the refreshments.
Yeah. So that other picture that I've seen, which, they're all dressed in these beautiful white dresses, and I saw that someone had commented on Facebook, people realize that we don't dress like that, right? And that just has to do with our belief that, I could say a lot of things, and again, it's so interesting because the doctrine, we really just want the best for everyone, and so it's like, well, when you're dressing, with really short skirts or really low tops, you're going to attract the attention of the men, and maybe you don't want that attention. You can be beautiful without wearing something that's really revealing. I think a lot of times women feel maybe like they've got to dress a certain way to be considered beautiful, to have men look at them.
Yep.
It's like, if that's the kind of men that...
Yeah.
I don't know. We're kind of getting into like a deeper topic here. So maybe this will be a whole other podcast.
Yeah, a whole other podcast. Our next convention.
But, yes. So like that modesty thing. Because a lot of people know that we have a special garment that we wear, the garment of the priesthood, which I think you can, look up some. And that has to do with our promises that we make in the temple.
Right.
And you're supposed to wear it every day.
Oh, wow.
You're supposed to have it. You're supposed to wear it all the time. It has special meaning to us. There's symbols in the garment that relate to all of the things. And so those kinds of dresses would not cover those. So people are like, we don't wear those. So it's really unfortunate to me, and I feel like sad that we have that kind of a show out there, because it's not a true depiction of what the church believes. And a lot of times when people turn away from the church, it usually has to do with the people and not the doctrine.
Right, okay.
Some people really struggle with Joseph Smith, and that he was 14 when he had the first vision, and think, he was a child, how could he have seen that? And it's interesting because I've never questioned Joseph Smith. I feel like if you were to really research it and see what his family went through because of what he was saying to people, because of what he was telling people, he was tarred and feathered. He was imprisoned, and then he was eventually, he was killed for his beliefs. And Emma, his wife, she went through a lot. Now, Emma did kind of stray from the church, but they lost children. They really, there was a struggle there for them. And I can't believe that someone would go through that without really believing it.
Yeah.
So I've never questioned, but I know there are some people that have. But as we were talking a little bit earlier, before we started recording, the whole premise of the church is to be Christ-like, to have the attributes that Christ had, to be charitable, to be kind. It is not our job to, and it's really unfortunate because I feel like sometimes the LDS church is one of the most judgmental churches. Even myself sometimes, like we, it's like no one should care, and you shouldn't feel that way. But sometimes, people just are judgmental, or they watch people and it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But it is not our job to turn people away. It's not our job to condemn people. It's not our job to hate people. And I think everyone deserves to be cared about. Everyone deserves to be, their voices deserve to be heard.
Yeah.
And when the Savior was here, if you look at his life, he spent time with the sinners. He didn't spend time with the righteous. He spent time with the sinners. He loved everyone. He didn't, and when people kind of pushed back at him, he just turned the other cheek. There was no, he was all about that love, that Christ-like love. And that is what the church is about.
Yeah.
Christ-like love. And somehow it kind of gets turned into something else.
Yeah. They're trying to create a reality TV show out of, and it's the drama and stuff.
The premise of it was what, like women are supposed.
It was mom talk, and it was sort of that she started it because she was bored at home or something, I think. And then I think there was threesomes involved, and then there was all sorts of... there was all sorts, like, and I literally only know a touch of it. I really don't know a whole lot about it, but there was, it was kind of, they were doing these sexy dances, but then there was a lot of lies. Like, I think one of the main girls said that, like, the two daughters were her two twins and that she was actually 50 when she's only, like, in her 20s. And so there was a lot of misconceptions and stuff. But what I think is interesting, I mean, the fact that there's a reality TV show out of it does not shock me, because I feel like TV is garbage nowadays. So we'll make anything out of anything.
Will try to make money off.
Absolutely. But I think what's kind of sad, or what I found from watching the 2 episodes, was it was just silly nonsense, honestly. But I also found, like, I was raised Catholic, and, you know, I don't go to church anymore, but I have my beliefs. I go to St. Patrick's Cathedral, you know, sometimes, and I do my thing. But it's similar, like, no judgment.
Which everyone should be able to.
Exactly.
Everyone should be able to
exactly. It should be your choice.
How they feel. Or if they don't want to worship, that's okay. Or if they don't believe that there's a God, that's okay too. I feel like, it's like we were saying, we have lots of friends that don't believe the same
things as us.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, some of those people are some of my favorite people.
And it's what makes, honestly, conversation interesting.
Right.
You know?
If
you can't have a little spur about, like, religion or politics and stuff like that, it's the reason why they say when you're drinking to stay away from religion and politics is because people get really, like,
they do get
angry
really
and very, like, this is what I believe. Whereas I'm like, I mean, even in class yesterday, when that guy spoke up and I said, okay, I don't agree with you, but that's okay.
Right, that's okay.
That's okay.
That's all right.
I don't agree with you, but that's okay.
And then we continue the conversation later. And you know, again, hearing people's perspectives.
Yeah.
Everyone deserves to have a voice. But so continue to think
but so I just feel like this show has turned, you know, it took it and it turned it into a reality TV show to make money or whatever, but it has turned into pitting women against each other, both physically, mentally, and also, to be honest, you know, and the Mormon church, you know, again, apologies, but the long name, I am not going to remember. And I feel like I'm going to get the acronym wrong and say something else, which is also bad.
Totally fine.
But, you know, there's rules. And, you know, a bit like in the Catholic Church where you weren't allowed to be cremated. Then all of a sudden you were.
That was kind of the thing with the LDS church as well, because we believe, you know, we want to keep the body as whole as
and then,
possible.
And then cremated remains had to remain whole. And so, you know, all of these things, you know, it is evolving and society's changing. And, you know, people do think that religion is responsible for a lot of problems and wars and stuff like that. And I can understand that and I can see that as well. But I just feel like what they did in this particular scenario is highlighting, you know, pitching women against each other, but it's also just kind of making a mockery, because it's like, you know, there's one scene where they snuck alcohol into one of them snuck alcohol into like a hot tub, and that's against...
Right, we just don't drink.
Yeah.
But it's not because we think there's anything wrong with it. We just don't like the frame of mind that it puts us in.
Yeah. But it's the interesting thing I just found was that it's sort of like, and I guess maybe I'm probably a bit more sensitive as well, because coming from Ireland, we were very much ruled by the church.
Sure.
And, you know, women were thrown into the Magdalene laundries. You know, a woman who had sex, the man never had anything, but we were thrown into these like places, locked up, and our babies ripped from us you know, us, I'm saying, but it was, so I'm probably hypersensitive to it, but yeah, I just really didn't like the premise of the show. I just felt like it's making a mockery of the religion. It's making a mockery of these women. I'm sure they're making a fortune from it. And yeah, I just...
Right. And I'm no expert. I'll say that. I'm no expert. I mean, I've been a member my whole life. And I have a firm belief in the church. And that is part of who I am.
Yeah.
So again, I'm not a church historian, and you know, as people said on some of these Facebook posts, you know, if you have questions, you can go to the website. Of the church. If you type in lds.org, it'll take you to the church. Yeah, and you can ask questions there.
That's it.
You
Being curious.
You can do the reading. Right? Yeah. I'm sure it's the same with the Catholic Church and anything else if you wanted to. You know, but you know, from what I've gathered, what they're highlighting is that women are supposed to be in the home, they're supposed to just be making babies, and they're supposed to be homemakers. And a lot of LDS moms are stay-at-home moms. Not all of them, of course, but there are some of them. You know, I was a stay-at-home mom before, and then I do homeschool my children. But that's just my own personal choice.
Yeah.
And now back when the church began, when the restoration of the church began, so Joseph Smith's time, the 1800s, there was polygamy because they needed to expand the number of members. Okay, well, polygamy is not, we frown on polygamy now, but at that time.
I even had to answer a question on my green card application. Yes.
But at the time, they needed it. And then, of course, women were homemakers at the time. And as they were in a lot of other religions or countries where they did, and then, of course, you have in the United States, at least, as time went on, even in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, women were still stay-at-home moms. They did the cooking, the cleaning, the ironing, all of those things. And the world has just shifted.
Yeah.
So I've not seen the show, but I can say this about the church. Women are highly favored. If you listen to the prophet, if you listen to the apostles, the way they talk about their wives, how much better they make them, how much they cherish their wives. I know my husband does.
I met him. He's
he sees me as his equal. He does not see me as less than him, and I don't see him as more than me or less than me. We see each other as equals, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but my husband and I have a really great relationship.
Yeah, you can tell.
We took work. We had to work at it.
Like every relationship.
I do love my husband dearly. And we have 2 children, and I'm grateful for our marriage. We were married in the Timpanogos temple, and I'm grateful for that every day. But again, that goes back to the doctrines that we believe. I'm grateful that my children will always be with me.
Yeah.
I love my children, and we're gonna get emotional about something else. But I want that for everyone, that joy. So however they find it, whatever that is, I want that for them, because I think everyone should have a relationship with some kind of higher power. Because again, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that there is something greater than us, and I may get there to heaven and be like, well, I'm so sorry,
my bad.
Right. But, I can't believe that there's nothing after this.
No. Yeah.
What's the purpose then? I can't, and tell me, tell me, have you never had an experience where you felt something? Yeah. There's been some other, and I wouldn't necessarily say it's God per se, but we believe in angels and that they do work here. So those of us
they have 4 falls
who have passed on, so again, we're talking about, again, the relation, because a lot of people believe that they, that their pet is that sign, but I know my husband and I, we've experienced these just feelings, these impressions that someone else is there.
Yeah.
Someone else is taking care of us, protecting us, guiding us through this life. And so it's unfortunate that the church is being reflected in that way.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the church is perfect. We try to do everything that we can. Again, I would tell someone to go to the doctrine to really see what the church is about, because that's how it should be done. But again, we're all human. Yeah. And, if we're looking at wards or if we're trying to break down the church, into the smaller wards or branches, they are overseen by a human, and we do make mistakes. Yeah. Sometimes, like we've been talking as the classes that we had yesterday, sometimes we don't do well with conflict, or we don't do well with our coping mechanism. And that's a struggle for people. But so I would just tell people, everyone has their choices, but if you have questions about what the LDS Church really stands for, to research it for yourself, to really see what it's about.
Well, all right, so this is continuing the Mormon conversation.
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I really,
it's
okay. Never get the name
No. I just wanted to specify it in the video.
No.
I want to represent the church well.
No, 100%. That was really good, and hopefully people get it. This is you calling it LD.
So LDS would be like an acronym for it, but
there's a drug, and I know I'd fuck up and say LSD, and people would be like, "What?"
No, I totally get it.
You're capturing all that, aren't you?
It's the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So that's where the LDS came from, Latter-day
They really needed to have just shortened it.
Well, but like I've heard of the Church of Christ or the Church of Jesus Christ.
Okay, they're all the same?
No, I don't know. I just heard of some Christian denominations that it'll be like the Church of Jesus Christ, but we add on of Latter-day Saints.
Okay.
Yes, because So the term Mormon, a lot of people use, it comes
where did that come from?
So it comes from the Book of Mormon. So we have the Bible, the King James Version. And then after the restoration of the church, Joseph Smith was given plates of brass that were recorded on a long time ago by prophets. And so he translated that book. And that was something else that he was, people said, well, how could he, he just made it all up. I mean, he just made up this book, which one of the counter arguments is he was uneducated. Joseph Smith was very uneducated. It's said that in conversations that he had with people, he was very quiet or slower to speak because he really wanted to think about what he was saying because he was
Which I wish more people would do these days, honestly.
I know. And so to say that he wrote that would be completely inaccurate because he did not have that ability. For him to be able to match dates and locations, there's no way. It would have taken a very educated group of people to be able to write something like that. So anyways, he translated that book, which we now have as the Book of Mormon. Mormon was one of the prophets that is written of in that book. And so that's where the Mormon comes from, because we have this other book, and it's the Book of Mormon, and it is said another testament of Jesus Christ. So that's where that Mormon term comes from. But, I mean, we totally know. I mean, we get it when someone says, oh, we're Mormon. It's like, oh, yeah, we are. So it's no big deal. Yeah. But yeah, that's it.
Now tell us, because we've talked about pet loss. Mm-hmm. So what does the church feel about loss of animals and humans?
And how do we cope with
it?
So that's the great thing. So in our religion, we believe in the plan of salvation. And I'll tell you about my grandmother in a minute, but in the plan of salvation, we believe that there was a spirit world where we were all together, that we were sent here at a particular time and place. I will constantly say I could have never been a pioneer, because there was a time when the LDS church was persecuted back east, and then they made the long handcart journey to Utah. And that's also a neat history if you'd like to look into that. The Martin Handcart Company is an amazing group of saints that we often refer to because their trail or their group, their handcart group, they left later in the year. I can't remember why they were delayed. And so they had to cross in the winter. And it talks about the footprints that they left and how little food they had. And then, of course, they had to cross the river. So it's a really neat story if you want to look it up. But they sent men from Zion, which would have been Salt Lake City area, to help carry those people across the river. Because they by that time, they were so tired and so weak. And they sent these 3 men to help carry them across the river. So it's just a super neat story. But anyway, so we believe we were sent here to receive a body. That's the reason we come.
Oh.
And then, of course, to use our agency to make choices. I mean, because the church, it's important that people know the church still believes that we have our agency. So they say in the premortal world that there were 2 sons that presented a plan. And Satan, or Lucifer, as a lot of people refer, presented the plan. We're not going to give people their agency. They're just going to make good choices. But he wanted the glory. And then Jesus Christ, he presented and said, we're going to give people agency. We're going to give them a choice to choose. And the glory goes to God. And so Lucifer was cast out, and he was mad that they had gone with his plan. So Lucifer or Satan was cast out, and we went the Savior's plan. And so we believe that the Savior knew. I mean, the Lord knows. He has everything planned, and this time that we have here on earth is just a little blip. And so in the plan of salvation, we believe that after this life, we will go back to that spirit world and we'll be able to be with our families for eternity. There's a lot of depth to that. One of my favorite quotes, President Uchtdorf, who's one of our leaders, he said, the church is so simple that a child can understand it, which they do, but so vast and deep that it could take us a lifetime to understand. And so it's just kind of a neat concept to think about. You can be a church historian or a scriptorian and study it your whole life, and there's still so much more that you can learn. So as far as loss goes, we do believe that there's something after this life, that we will be reunited with our family, and I do believe that. Now, as far as pets go, there's some controversy there. Some people believe that pets will absolutely be there, and I've heard my aunt say, no pets. And then again, we have no idea. We're just kind of going off of whatever doctrine there might be out there, which again, this might be something worth researching, and what does the church believe?
Yeah.
Because as we talked about with cremation, for a long time the church we didn't really agree with cremation. And then the church sort of changed its policy. I don't want to say policy, but kind of how, because the world has changed. Funerals are expensive. People are more transient, and people want to cremate. They just, maybe they want to have their family member with them, or we have a family plot but it's full. So where we're just going to bury mom somewhere, just like out in the cemetery, it just sort of shifted. And so people cremate. And again, like you were talking in the Catholic Church, do you guys still believe that the ashes have to be all together?
They say that, yeah, but yes. Again, this type of services I do as a celebrant, I work with a lot of people who are Reformed Catholics, Reformed Jews, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Like I would probably consider that's me, because I don't go to church, I don't go to confession.
So you still have your belief?
I still have my belief. But like I have cremation jewelry lines, so like that's taking some of the ashes and splitting it and that sort of thing. So. As far as I know, the church still believes in kind of keeping it all together. But then each archbishop of each diocese can make their own. There was one who banned eulogies in his funerals in my area, which I disagree with. So again, it's being open and it's making your own decisions. That okay, I don't agree with that. I mean, I'd like to believe there's a God, and I like to think the universe puts things in a certain way for me, and I, when my grandmother passed away, I like to think that she's sitting on my shoulder and looking out for me and stuff like that. So mine's muddled.
But I think that's okay. I think it's okay to, you know what I mean? I think that's why we're here.
You can make your own religion and bring to different things.
As
long as you're a good and kind person.
Right.
I wish there was more of them.
Right. You know what I mean?
That's the religion.
I mean, it's to take, and again, we were talking about what the church is based on. The life of the Savior, how he treated others. How he had respect for everyone around him. And he didn't shy away from, a certain person because of this, or a certain person because of that, or a certain group of people. He was with all of them. So my grandmother, who has had many pets, many dogs, she said, well, if my dogs aren't there, I'm not going. I mean, that's just how she is. And my belief, I believe that they are creatures that were created by the Lord. And I think, why wouldn't they be there? They were his creation. I think there's a special place for that in heaven. And, but I've heard lots of people say, well, just as we were talking about your sweet dogs, I've heard people say, this is the same dog, just looks different. It's the same dog. And I think that's awesome. If that's what you feel, then go for it. You know what I mean? I think everyone has different beliefs, and I think that's okay. But as far as the LDS Church, as far as mourning and loss, one of my favorite quotes, one of our prophets, when he lost his wife, he said something along the lines of, not exactly true, but he said, to take the grief out of life is to take the love out of it. And we do believe that life is short, and
that's actually very powerful.
Live in the moment. I mean, to say that you didn't grieve someone would mean you didn't love them. And we live this life with our hearts on our sleeves most of the time, and we love, even when we try not to, we still love, whether it's our pets, whether it's people, whatever it is. And loss is hard.
Mm-hmm.
Loss is hard. And one of my favorite videos is a gal who's talking about her family and the loss that she has suffered. And she had lost several of her children and her husband to a disease. But she talked about in this video how it has given her the ability to help others. And that's how the church is.
Yeah.
You know, or at least, you know, that's what the doctrine is. It is to reach out to others. And we could easily turn that around to pet loss. You know, I've lost my own pets, and it makes me very empathetic to people who come into my office. And having the gospel as a background, that kindness, that compassion, that empathy for other people, which is really what the church is about, having those Christ-like attributes. It gives me that little boost to be able to feel that with them. You know, at first when people came to my office and they cried and they were upset, it was like, oh, I'm so awkward. Like, I don't know what to do. And then as I got used to it, it was like, you know what? If crying is what you need to do, then do it. It's okay to come in here and cry. Yeah. It's okay to be upset. I've had people come into my office and be angry. Not at me. I know it's not geared towards me. I just happen to be the one that they can talk to about it. Yes. Or vent to. Yeah. Sometimes that's all people want. They just want to be able to talk to someone who understands. Yeah. Someone who experiences it all the time. Yeah. You know, and no, I don't deal with grief with humans, but honestly, I feel like sometimes grief with pets is more so because people can say things to hurt you. Now, like, I know you have a really great relationship with your parents. Some people don't. I know you have a great relationship with your brother. Yep. And so for you to lose one of them, it would be devastating. Yeah. You know, just like for me to lose my mom. Yeah. For many years, I wasn't close with my dad. Had I lost my dad during that time, it would have had a different impact on me. Because you can burn bridges. People say things that are hurtful, things that you can't take back. And, you know, we as humans, we tend to have these butting of heads, and we tend to sometimes pull out the worst in each other. And so we push apart. So when we have a funeral for someone that we maybe didn't have a great relationship with, it doesn't hit us as hard. Yeah. You know, because like I was saying, the brain, if you don't call your sister all the time, if you don't talk to him all the time, you haven't seen him in
part
years,
of your daily or monthly ritual,
then you still feel the loss, but it's not the same. Yeah. It's not the same as losing a child or a spouse, or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So, well, and I think that's a really good note to sort of end up on. I will say this. One, I think, honestly, the show, well, there's one thing that honestly will just tell you what it's all about in a sense, right? All the girls, as they're interviewed, their name gets put on the thing, and it's like, so mine will be Jennifer, yours will be Sydney. The only person who gets a surname is this girl, Jennifer Affleck, or Jen Affleck, because she's related to Ben Affleck. That tells you all you need to know about who the show is targeting. Like, they're clearly just clanging on to anything. Right. But anyway, I think what is good about these shows and all these things is at least it's giving people interest. Yes. So I would agree. Yeah, so I think what we'll wind up on, because I think it's been a really beautiful conversation, and thank you for educating me, genuinely. You know, because I had questions, and, you know, we talked about it off camera, and we've talked about it, hopefully we've covered a lot of things. But I just think exactly, you and I are on the same boat. It's like, be curious, be open, be whoever you want to be. And what you said about joy is just
find it, whatever it is, whatever your passion is. If it's pet cremation, if it's dog rescue, if it's you know, helping
the church.
I mean, whatever it might be, just whatever it is, just do you. And just be happy in that moment, because I think
life is precious,
right? And it's short. And if you've experienced a lot of loss, you know that. And I'm telling you that if you're in a place where you're not in a good place and you don't seem to have that joy, find it, because it's out there. In whatever it might be. And just be you. Just be happy where you're at. You know?
We're going to leave all your links below so that everybody can contact you if they have more questions. You never know. I wouldn't laugh if you get more questions about the church than you do about pet cremation. That's it. Live from Boston. Thank you so much for joining the Glam Reaper in the wild. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you.